Okay, we're going live. Good evening. Welcome to the TalkWrite podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Stennett, and we've got a really cool show for you tonight. And for the first time in TalkWrite history, we've actually got not just a repeat guest, but we have a live guest right here in the studio. Say hello to Cap Daniels.
Good evening.
Author of the Chase Fulton novels series, correct?
Among others, but
And I'll turn it over to Nick so he can introduce our other guest. You have to unmute your microphone.
I am unmuted, but my YouTube was going at the same time, and there's a lag. Yes, we have Cap Daniels, who is 6'5", I just learned, and I feel very small now. Cap has 17 books in the Chase Fulton series, 3 in the Russian Avenging Angels series, and 2 masterful standalones, which we'll talk about. Cap is also a veteran pilot with a seaplane rating, how about that, and a longtime boater and sailing instructor. We also have his new narrator, PJ Oakland. PJ has narrated hundreds of audiobooks. He's an audio award winner. He has multiple earphones awards. And we just learned, keep an eye out for him. He's got a feature film coming out called Deep in the Forest, which will be available for streaming on May 31st. PJ is a master of dialects. As far as the people I know personally in the narrating world, if people ask me for an obscure dialect, I always go, just call PJ. He's currently a dialect coach for Universal Studios and the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So whatever little snot-nosed punk is playing Harry Potter over there, he helps him sound like he might be from England. All right, that's enough out of me. First, I think we should throw it over to Cap and explain how it is he came to be here.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Before we start, let me point out, I'm 5'9" tall and 200 pounds. And look at this. We're sitting the same distance from the camera. Okay, you little guy.
And the legs are not even being factored in. They're both sitting.
not yet.
But yeah, when I invited Cap to be back on the show again, this is the second anniversary show. He was on our very first TalkWrite episode almost on this day 2 years ago. So when I invited him back, he says, "Hey, how about if I just, rather than come remotely, how about if I just jump in an airplane and fly over there?" So you got you an airplane now.
We certainly do. We were very fortunate to now have a Cessna 210 Centurion that brought us almost 300 miles in about an hour and a half this afternoon to visit with our good friends. So it's sort of a time machine for us, and we're very thankful for that opportunity.
Time machine's a good word, because that drive would have taken you all day.
It's 7 hours.
Yeah.
Or an hour and a half. I choose an hour and a half. That's
and uses just about the same amount of fuel. That's not bad.
about 14 gallons an hour. So.
For those of us who are not plane heads, I'm just curious, if you were to go to LA from Florida, how many stops would you need?
If the wind from the west wasn't terrible, we could do it in one stop, and we would stop somewhere in the middle of the country and fly over country, refuel, but I have about a 2.5 hour bladder, so we stop quite often to offload liquids rather than onload them. So.
Who was it? Burt Reynolds was in a movie where he sat in a really long, like 12-hour long lecture that some girl that got him to go to in some movie. I forget what it was, but he had a whiskey flask strapped to his leg with a hose. Maybe something like that might be in order for standard equipment in the plane.
And that would be good if I were your size, but at my size,
yeah,
we end up
moving
needing
around.
a garden hose and a 5-gallon bucket.
Well, as many of our viewers may or may not know, Wayne used to be a long haul trucker. So I'm wondering if you had your own little techniques for that.
Stop every 3 hours. That's all you can do.
Okay. Well, speaking of flying, something I learned, I've known PJ Oakland for a while as one of the top narrators in the field, but what I didn't know is he's also a pilot. It's been a while, I guess, but it seemed to me you were familiar with the exact model of plane that Cap flew up in.
Yeah, indeed. I used to fly a lot when I was younger. In fact, my first solo was a month after it was legal, right after I turned 16. I used to fly out of Islip on Long Island. So yeah, it was fun. I don't do it anymore, but I'll get back to it. And I think Cap keeps pushing me toward getting back to it, so it'll happen sooner or later.
We'll definitely get you back in the cockpit.
Yeah, indeed.
All right. Who's got a question?
I don't have a question. I got the rum though.
Oh,
Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna jump into a big question because authors have asked me this over a long period of time. In some cases, someone will say to me, "Hey, will you narrate my books? I've got someone doing the first 4 books, and I want you to." I'm like, "No, don't change narrators." But sometimes it has to happen. And Cap needed to change narrators for scheduling reasons. And I had recommended PJ because I knew Cap sent his characters all over the place. So when you've got globe-trotting thrillers, a mastery of dialects is important. So Cap and PJ, I'll let either one of you, is it tasty? What was it like to switch? Like PJ, did you listen to any of the previous books or did you go cold? Did you have a long chat with Cap? How'd it go?
A little bit of all of the above. I had a long chat with Cap. We exchanged a lot of information in terms of, I wanted to be as prepared as possible. But the one area where I didn't do a tremendous amount was listening to too much of what happened before. Because I've taken over a lot of series and it's never an enviable position to be in, as you already alluded to, Nick. But the best thing you can do is be inspired by what's come before in terms of the choices that were made, try to stay true to character choices that were made, certain tonal things. But if you do like an impression of it, if you get into mimicry, the best it can ever possibly be is some sort of pale impression of what came before. So you have to be able to make it your own, I think, to be successful with the series. So going with notes on, hey, here's what we have established for this character. Here's where this one is essentially vocally, but also more importantly for me, especially with this series, knowing how many more were to come, most important for me was finding out from Cap who these characters were. Tell me as much as I need to know about backstory so I can use that to inform who they are. You mentioned I'm a character and accent specialist, but even when I'm teaching that stuff, I always make the point that who the characters are is always, without fail, more important than what they sound like. And I needed to know who they were. This is an established, beloved series. So I'm taking that responsibility seriously. You want to keep the fans happy, understand these guys, understand their backstory. They've built a bond. They've become a team of special operators. I want to know all those little, ins and outs. So we spent time talking about that. I gave Cap the opportunity to weigh in on anything that was important to him, tell me, what I need to know, any requests, I'll factor that in. And that's it. And you go from there. And I think the fans have stuck with us really, really well. And we've made it our own while still honoring what came before.
That's pretty much what I do with Nick. At first, I started giving him information on how I wanted the character to sound. And now I create a bio for each character when they're introduced, just, height, weight, where they're from, what their job is, what they do. And he takes it from there and it works out a whole lot better.
PJ brings life to these characters that I didn't realize was there. I see these characters very differently than the readers. And now we have PJ's take on them. And it's exciting to hear what he turns them into. Wayne and I both write in a bit of a unique style. We write by the seat of our pants, simply taking notes of what the voices do in our head. And that's terrifying to non-writers, I think. But for us, it's a wonderful trip to the playground every day to play with our imaginary friends.
Yeah.
And now I have begun to hear those voices in PJ's voice.
Not just what they're saying, but how they're saying.
That's right.
It's changed the way I write.
Absolutely.
Totally changed.
We
And
got-
you're going to love Rusty in this next book, Nick, because you've made him more Rusty-ish. And
Yeah,
he's
but Rusty
a big player in this
wouldn't
book.
sound the way he sounds if you hadn't written it that way. That's the thing you guys both need to realize, is that a lot of what, and I'm sure PJ would agree with me, the characters, you give us enough that we sort of lock in, and I would hope that then you have two different creative heads working toward a single goal. And if anything, it's a crucible to make it even more that person.
Well, that's the great thing about narrating good writing, and that's what you guys give us. When you've got good writing, then you're dealing with characters that are already fleshed out on the page. So we're starting with great material that we use to inform the choices we make. The two things go hand in hand.
Thank you. That's an incredible compliment. I'm sure Wayne and I both greatly appreciate that. We've fallen in love with our characters. They've become part of the family.
Jesse
And-
McDermott's been in my head since 1984.
Some people might call that schizophrenia there, Wayne.
Some people might. And we make a good living from it.
Yeah.
But I can't thank PJ enough for what he has done with it. We had a wonderful performer before in Kyle Tate from Atlanta. He did a wonderful job. His schedule was such that he couldn't record as quickly as I write. And we were getting further and further behind. And as I said, Kyle is an incredible talent. I was very fortunate to have him on the early books. But the transition now that PJ is on board, our schedule has opened up and we're keeping up much better than we did before. One of the things we're going to try to do by the end of this year is release the audiobooks the same day as the ebooks and paperbacks, so that I don't get 1,000 emails asking when the audiobook is going to come out.
Well,
so we're working to get that.
When you take your audiobooks wide, Google does pre-orders, and it doesn't have to be uploaded first.
Very nice.
In fact, when Cast Off goes on pre-order in June, it will be on pre-order for ebook, paperback, and audiobook.
Nice.
Even though I haven't even finished writing it, much less recording it.
That's a question I get a lot, is how quickly do we release the books after they're written? And I often predict a date and publish a date, suggesting that we're going to release a book later in the year. And I like to underpromise and overdeliver.
Mhm.
So I love to deliver my books 2 or 3 months earlier than expected. So that's always a nice little treat for the readers who are expecting it 2 months later.
My books are scheduled, release dates are scheduled for all the way through the end of, I've got one scheduled for July 5th, November 1st, and probably late February.
Very nice.
I haven't nailed that one down yet, but I haven't even started writing it. So
I'm not smart enough to schedule that far in advance.
but it's important to schedule, because you've got you've got your own editor on staff.
We do.
So I don't have that luxury. I have to schedule a date with my editor, and it's got to be 2 months in advance at least.
We've been very fortunate to build a fabulous team, and it's become a well-oiled machine at this point. It's made my job significantly easier. I am very, very little more than just a writer now.
That's where you want to be.
Yeah, it's,
I mean, running, wearing all the different hats, it gets very convoluted.
it's freeing and liberating to be able to just write and just think about the characters. And we have this beautiful team who turn what I create into a book to be enjoyed, and I can move on and write the next one.
Have you thought about writing? Let me back up actually and point out that two marvelous books that I would put in my top 20 are your two standalones. I thought were marvelous,
Yeah,
and I'm wondering if you're going to be doing any more. Can you quickly tell us a little bit about your two standalones? Because I think a lot of writers get focused on their series. And to me, it's the standalones have a really special place usually in the heart of the writer, and they're also the ones that might win awards. So I would be curious if you could tell us a little bit about your two standalones, and do you have any others in the pipeline?
We have two standalones. The first is a novella called I Am Gypsy. It's the tale of the life of a sailboat who perished in a hurricane. And it is told from the perspective of the sailboat. And my wife, Melissa, and I owned a boat very similar to the one in the story. And she also perished in Hurricane Michael. So I told this story probably as portional healing, I suppose, more than anything else, sort of a way to say goodbye to the boat we loved so much. And it grew into a story that I never imagined it could become. And it was a lot of fun to write. It came to me on a Thursday. I wrote 9,000 words in about 20 hours or so. And so we turned that little novella out very quickly. We're very proud of that one. The second is a story called We Were Brave. And it's the story of an alcoholic, drug addicted, homeless, former English professor, New York Times bestselling novelist. And it is the story of his redemption and the realization of the worst decision he made in his life turned out to be one of the best decisions for someone else's life. It was a story Melissa and I wrote together, and it came together interestingly. We were having some remodeling done to our house, and I write in our house, but with contractors playing their music and hammering and sawing. I couldn't write at home, so I went to the local bookstore where they have a little coffee shop in there, and I had no idea what I was going to write next. Sitting at the table, I began to imagine what would be the worst possible thing that could happen in this coffee shop, and I imagined an armed robbery. So that became chapter 1 of this book, and it very quickly wrote itself. Essentially, Melissa and I conspired to write this one together. We did the typing, but the story just came, and it turned into a fun story, and Nick brought it to life so beautifully when you performed the audio version. Thank you for that. So we're very proud of those two little stories.
Yeah, well, and I was pleased you said it in my neck of the woods. Many of the places I'm like, I know where that street is.
As it turns out, Nick and I grew up about 30, 35 miles apart in East Tennessee 40 years ago, and neither of us realized it until we were at Wayne's birthday party. Your 25th birthday party 4 years ago, right?
Yeah,
I thought so.
No, that was my 28th birthday. Yeah.
I've just got to interject real quick that I'm looking at the YouTube, and I can't tell if anyone's asking any questions because I don't see any. Wayne has a brand new computer and can't check, and I am an idiot. I see we have quite a few people watching, but it just doesn't show any responses. So Jordan, if you're able to peek, I'd be very obliged.
Let's just see how powerful this machine is.
Oh boy.
If I crash and burn, I'll be back.
Well, in the meantime, what is it like teaching people to talk like Harry Potter and his buddies?
It's good fun. You know, it was brought to my attention a little while back that being the official dialect coach for the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, I'm quite literally one of the only people in the history of the world who actually teaches at Hogwarts. So it's kind of a fun fact as fun facts go. It's great. There's a number of different roles that are played in the land at Universal. So what I had to design when they asked me to come on board to do the program, I created a thing where I'm doing group classes, which doesn't happen a lot in the dialect coaching world. You know, it's a very one-on-one work if I'm coaching on a film or TV show, something like that. Private coaching for actors prepping for roles they've booked or are auditioning for, and so on. So it's an interesting thing to do dialect coaching in a group setting. But we came up with a program that works really well. And I go down there on occasion, back to being in person since the pandemic started. I even coached the Beijing property when Universal opened Universal Studios in Beijing. I was teaching, I speak Mandarin, long story.
Whoa.
And I was teaching the actors who were hired to be at Universal in Beijing how to speak Mandarin with a British accent. that was one of the trippiest things I've ever done in the dialect coaching world. So
I did that.
Oh, sure. This morning.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my characters is where was he from, Nick?
Well, I need more than one of my characters.
One of my
He's
characters.
Portuguese, but he
27.
grew up in Boston.
Oh yeah, he's
There you
like,
go.
he's Portuguese, but he grew up in Boston. I'm like, okay, you picked my two worst accents and combined them. Thank you so much.
It's that southy part of Portugal.
Yeah,
It's,
Southie Portugal.
Southy Portugal.
Let's see if I have any. I still don't see any questions, so somebody help out.
Yeah, there's a whole stream. There's a whole bunch of people on there.
Why am I not able to see it? Can you ask?
You were missing a couple of letters there, Mike. Somebody's talking to somebody else.
Why
Someone
don't I
asked if PJ aerates. That would be cutting little holes in the ground so he can breathe, right? If he performs Anya's series, he does not. We have a wonderful Broadway actress from New York, Angela Church, who has a magnificent Russian accent. So since those stories are told primarily from the perspective of two female lead characters, she does those for us, and she does a wonderful job. But PJ gets his share of Russian dialogue that he gets to throw in occasionally.
Yeah.
So thank you for that question.
Yeah, indeed. Russian accents, and also you'll occasionally throw in a few sentences in Cyrillic. That's always fun.
He says that with a really.
He does. Yeah. But PJ makes almost $2 an hour narrating for me, so it's
Exactly.
it's well worth it.
So it's totally worth it. Exactly.
Frank
How
Rush
much is that in
has
rubles?
almost nothing now.
Yeah, I was going to say, was that maybe 7 cents? I don't know.
Not what it used to be.
Right.
Frank Rush was asking if there's going to be a movie based on the Chase Fulton series.
We have some wonderful things.
Everybody
going on.
always asks those
We have some
questions.
wonderful things going on the West Coast with our attorneys and agents out there. So we're going to hold that information for a bit later until we have more concrete answers. But hopefully we will all get to see Chase Fulton and Anya Bornkova instead of just reading about them.
And of course,
in
Tom
next year.
Cruise is going to play the lead.
Oh
right?
my gosh. He would make a terrible
On
Russian
stills.
female. Oh gosh.
Let's see what else do we have here.
We're old, so we have to wear glasses now.
Do you feel like someone is reading your mind and writing what you are thinking of writing? Yvonne Edwards asks. Yeah, a lot.
Sure.
I've come up with some really great ideas and then find them in somebody else's book.
You created a character that existed in someone
Yeah.
else's book.
Yeah, Rufus. I mean, Rufus was right out of my brain. And then a month, not even a month after the book was released, I found Michael Reisig's first book. And he had a character named Rufus, who also happened to be Jamaican. But his wasn't a chef.
No. No. And spent very little time sober.
No.
So, what's your Rufus?
Yeah, my Rufus is more of a Zen kind of Rastafari. But let's see what else we got here. Looks like a lot of your beta readers are on here.
I like that. Don Rich asks, Wayne writes to a schedule and wants to know if I do as well, or if I just write them as they come. Both, actually. I try to complete a manuscript about every 6 weeks. I write 2,000 to 3,000 words every day, and it has become a routine within my life that I, without writing every day, I feel empty, and I feel like I've left my best friends behind. So we try to spend a little time together every day, and it takes 3 to 5 weeks after I finish a manuscript to turn it into a publishable work.
We were in St. Martin a month ago, and getting ready to go on a cruise, big 4-masted schooner cruise ship, and we were all sitting on the beach, and Dan and Melissa were sitting right in front of us, and he's got his computer there, and he's sitting on the beach in St. Martin, and he's working.
I was just playing with my friends.
Yeah.
So, let's see.
Isn't that a great thing though? Because then it's not work.
That's right.
It's not work. You
It's
enjoy
really
it
not.
so much, you're looking forward to it. So I mean, that's a gift. That's the greatest thing you can ask for.
Thank you. And Wayne and I both, as we said, we write from the seat of our pants. We have no idea what's going to happen next. I'd never know what the next sentence is going to be from my characters. So I type what they do, and I'm more of a transcriptionist, I suppose, than an actual writer. But it's a lot of fun.
Yvonne commented that in Michael Reisig's books, his Rufus seems to be more Tomlinson. Which is who I based Jimmy Saunders on. Jimmy Saunders is based on Tomlinson, but more of a surfer guy.
And if you don't know who Tomlinson is, you're missing out.
Yeah.
Read Randy Wayne White. He's a legend. Let's see. You want to know if we would base characters after people in our lives?
Well, yeah, all of them.
Sure.
every character I've created is maybe not based on one particular individual, but they're all based on certain traits of different. Jesse McDermott is a little bit of Jack Reacher, a little bit of what's the guy's name? Mitch
Rapp.
Mitch Rapp.
Mm-hmm.
Just a whole lot of different characters, and you can't help it because those are your memories, and your memories become fodder for fiction.
Certainly.
And
well, that's
you
a
don't
question
ever
I
want to
could
say anything
throw-
around a writer.
I could throw that question to PJ. Do you ever base voices off of people in your life?
Yes. Yeah, it's one of the when I'm teaching like the character voice toolbox, the thing that I teach in the industry for fellow narrators and voice actors, I do the 7 Ps is what I call it, and I go through all my 7 Ps, and P number 7 is people. And I talk about how it's a really, really effective trick to cast actual people. And it doesn't have to be family members, friends, personally. It can be news pundits. It can be celebrities. It can be characters celebrities have played in other things. It can be a sports figure you love. Just anyone you understand their personality. And as a result, P number 7, I say there's like 7A and 7B. 7A on the technical side, that person, if you have a good understanding of how they speak, comes factory installed with the other 6 Ps that make up how it is that they speak, why they sound the way they sound, and you can sort of adopt that and assimilate. 7B takes it into the right brain where it's not as technical, and this is the real thing that takes us all the way back to the beginning of who they are is more important than what they sound like. When you're basing it on a real person, it keeps it grounded. You don't risk going into caricature or stereotype. It's a real person. And as a result of that, you have this true north that you keep returning to. So if a character reminds me of my brother or a cousin or, again, a celebrity, and I cast them, I'll not only have the technical aspects of why and how they sound the way they do, but also the fact that it's a real person keeps me on that grounded, in that grounded place with a true north of always bringing me back to that real identity and personality. So yeah,
That's
we
good.
write our characters pretty much the same way. I mean, Flo is Jordan, and Alberto is my grandson Jack. So I just look at Jack playing in the playground, see what he's doing, then I write it.
Now, what PJ said, I think, is crucial with when you listen to a character and they sound fully formed. If you have just pages of material that you're trying to create a voice out of, it doesn't necessarily click, and you're having to constantly maybe check source material and such. But if you have something in your mind that you can just quickly access and then start speaking, the performance, the acting, and the emotion is going to be so much better than if you're trying to create some Hanna-Barbera cartoon character.
exactly. Yeah.
And that's actually, I don't teach audiobooks anymore, but when I did give instruction, I would always ask people if they were good at impressions. And if they said no, I said, good, because what you can do is do impressions, and you won't sound like them, but you will have something distinctive that your brain will always go back to. And so, although I tell them to avoid Chief Wiggum because everyone can do Chief Wiggum. But yeah, it's a trick. You want something where you're able to focus on the pace the author wants, the emotion the author wants, and you don't get too bogged down into character choices.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the 7 Ps, PJ. You only mentioned one of them. What are the other 6?
Well, I can't give away all the goods, Wayne. But
unless you give your credit card.
The reason I ask is because I have my own rule of 7 Ps, and my main character Jesse McDermott follows these religiously, and that's piss poor prior planning, or proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance.
Nice. Yeah, mine are a little bit different than that. The first 6 are totally technical: pitch, placement, pacing, physical alterations, etc. So things you're actually doing in the booth and really learning how to manipulate your voice, move things around. I often talk about placement being the one I put $3 next to when I teach, because that's the money. That's the one where when you really start to master or become adept at moving your placement around, nothing makes you sound like a different human being more than that. And that's occasionally you'll get those comments where people will feel like in reviews, I can't believe this is one narrator. I thought this was a multicast. And I think placement is often responsible for that more than anything. But Nick, to your point, I think that's the real key, because I always like to point out in teaching, but also just speaking publicly about this stuff, there are so many things, these job requirements when we're acting, whether it's on stage, on camera. You got to memorize lines, you got to hit marks, you got to memorize blocking with audiobook work, tons of technical things, all this left brain stuff. But I always feel like the magic lies in mastering that left brain stuff to the best of your ability, so you can then forget about it. And then when it's time to actually perform, transition into the right brain. Obviously, when we're on stage or in front of the camera, we're not thinking about what our next line is. We're trying to be honest and present in the moment. And it's the same thing here. When you're playing all the characters in the book, you don't want to stop mid-conversation or, get all bogged down in your head about what a character sounds like. You want to be so comfortable with that you can just become them and really let those acting chops take over.
Well, that's a question I have for both of you. When you're doing dialogue between two characters with very dissimilar voices, like Rusty and Jimmy, do you hit pause, change clothes in your mind, or do you just literally read it from one to the other?
Nick?
I'll jump in and say, no, if you give us 2 dissimilar people, that's easy. The problem is that when you have a book and you have these 3 guys are all middle-aged Texans. Yeah. Then I have to stop. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay.
Which middle-aged Texan is this?
No, but if they're distinct, it's a instant click, and I love it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's what we shoot for no matter what. So the answer is no, we don't pause unless we have to. Yeah, and the we have to part is, it can be whatever, like, you blew an accent, or it just didn't come out right, or you weren't prepared for the emotion of the moment, or you realize you misplayed it. They're reacting to something, and you then figure out, even though you prepped the book, that a paragraph later, they're getting really, really ticked off, and you realize that, oh, that was the trigger moment. I think, I can do better with that. I'm going to go back and replay this, so sometimes you miss the arc of it, whatever. But vocally, no, I mean, that's what we do, the ability to go back and forth between multiple voices on the fly. It doesn't always work, but the goal is to not pause for that kind of stuff, to just be all these characters. And it is a bit schizophrenic, obviously, but that's the job.
Michael Kivo asked a really cool question, and I'll pose this to you first. How do you guys get your deep knowledge of the locations? I know you're very well traveled, as am I. And I haven't written about any place I haven't been.
I wrote about a very remote spot in Siberia that I hope I never go. But like you said, generally, I don't write about places I haven't been. It's too easy to get busted on the details. Mm-hmm. So I go visit them. Settings are characters to me.
Exactly.
A town, a city, a marina, a hotel, a restaurant, they become a character in our stories. Yeah. We try to bring as much life to these non-living things.
I did a presentation at NINC on that subject. Your character your setting as a character. And it's the same thing with me. Every place that Jesse goes, I've already tread. In fact, his island, that fire ring that he has, that it appears in just about every book. I left that on that island, and that was, 40 years ago. And he found it and still uses it today. I'm surprised it's still there.
Cap, you've had a couple. You've had a couple, Cap, where you have invented a few things. Used some license, but then you explain it in your author's notes. You're always so great in your author's notes about connecting with your readers, and it's great. And we always include them in the audiobooks. But I know there were a couple of times, like one sequence that really sticks out in my mind is when we went to NORAD, and you took some liberties, which were all super cool. But then at the end, you're like, of course, I haven't been inside the mountain and I don't know all these details. But maybe that's the exception to the rule.
Certainly. But it's fun to imagine. The beauty of writing about a place no one can go, it doesn't matter if I get it right.
Yeah.
They can't go see it. There's a handful of people.
That's why I have so much envy for science fiction writers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Why did that happen? Oh, because it does. It's magic. Whatever.
Because that's how gravity works on this planet. Writing in the real world is very different than science fiction. We are bound by natural laws. Yeah. And I have a thing that I do. I always want everything I write to be possible, even if it's not plausible. And that's it's common for thriller writers to write something that is completely implausible and also impossible. Some things just can't be done. I love flawed characters. I love when my characters screw up and get hurt and learn from their mistakes. And you write the same way, I believe. Yeah. But it's fun to be bound by these natural laws and play within them.
And here's a question that David Thatcher asked. That this is a question that just befuddles me, because you work full time, right?
I do.
You're an air traffic controller.
I do.
You're also a sailing instructor.
I don't do that anymore.
A scuba instructor.
I don't do that anymore.
So a lot of things you don't, but you still work a full-time job.
Sure.
And you have managed to write 6 books a year for the last 4 years.
And I'm very disappointed. I should have been able to do 7.
Thatch asks, how do you do that? Basically, how do you crank out so much? I don't work a full-time job. I write 3 books a year, and that's it. That's the best that I can do. But I'm also juggling all the business side of it, whereas you have a team in place.
I do.
And I'm slowly working towards that. I've got a really good team now, but I'm just such a nitpicking micromanager. I can't not stay right on top of everything.
I certainly don't want to speak for Wayne, but I don't write literature. I'm not writing War and Peace. I'm building Toyota cars. I write a lot. I write every day, but I don't think of it as cranking out work. What I write, I want to be the best possible story that I can write in this time. I don't just put words on a page because I'm building a word count. I put characters on pages and I put settings on pages for an enjoyable experience for the reader. But I'm not trying to create War and Peace again. I want to write a fun, enjoyable novel that's about 10 hours long and then do another one 6 weeks later. That's how I approach what I do.
That's why I like reading your books.
Thank you.
They're not full of fluff. A lot of writers will plot the outline, they'll start filling it in, and then it's still not long enough. Okay, well, I'll spend the next 10 days and just fill in a whole bunch of fluffy piece. And I don't see the need for that. It's just,
certainly not.
If the story's over, it's over.
Right.
If it's 50,000 words or 150,000 words, it doesn't matter. Once the story's done, it's done.
We'll probably write a piece of literature before we die.
I'm not going to. No. I'm sticking with genre fiction.
Okay.
That's what's paid the bill so far.
I'll write Anna Karenina or something before I die, I hope.
Maybe Anya Karenina.
Indeed.
Oh, now that's not a bad idea.
I'm jotting that down.
And Frank Rush asks the question that everybody always asks. He's part of your beta team.
He is.
And he says various characters, they treat various characters as if they are real. Are they real to you?
Oh, absolutely. Aren't yours?
Of course.
Sure.
Jesse, like I said, Jesse has been in my head since 1984. when I first started writing, he was just like me. He was just fresh out of the Marine Corps after serving 4 years and working as a commercial fisherman. So I just made stuff up. And this is all a bunch of short stories that never got published, but they eventually became Fallen Palm and Fallen Hunter. But they're so real at times that I talk to them. I do too.
I'm glad I'm not alone in that. I feel better now. Oh no, they're very real. They become an active part of our life. Melissa and I will be out to dinner or something, and we will see someone who physically resembles how we picture one of our characters, and we'll watch what that person does so that I can include it in a future story, or not include it if I didn't like the way that person moved.
Well, you can ask Jordan when we go down to the Keys. We're driving down the road. Oh, right over there is where Jesse did this. Right over there is where Jesse did that. Oh, there's Rusty Anchor over there.
I love when I get emails or messages from readers who are sitting in a restaurant that appeared in one of my stories, and they'll take a picture and send me the picture.
I got a picture of where Chase met with when he first started in the very first one.
Oh, in Jekyll Island.
In Jekyll Island, yeah.
The Jekyll Island Club.
Yeah, it's really cool for readers to be able to identify with those locations, and even if the character's not real, the location is very real.
I'll change the name sometimes if I'm going to kill somebody in a parking lot. I won't do it in the parking lot of a restaurant I love. Who else is on?
Don Rich wants to know if you're working on your multi-engine rating.
I am. We will we'll hopefully get that done this year. Not in the summer. It's too hot and bouncy to do training flying in the summertime. So we'll wait till the fall, but we'll knock that out.
One of my favorite characters just came up in a question. Earl at the end.
Oh, I love Earl. Earl at the end.
Earl has got to be based on a real person.
Earl is absolutely real. I'll never divulge who she is.
I knew she had to be. It's just the way you write her.
Earl was a throwaway character. Her name is Earlene, and she insists everyone call her Earl. She's the world's best marine mechanic. She can fix anything that my characters break. But she's interesting. She's 5 feet tall and 250 pounds, and taller lying down than standing up. But she's become a beloved character. I wrote her as a throwaway character for one scene. I believed she would provide some comic relief and disappear. Well, she gets more email than I get now, so we can't get rid of her.
I've got a character like that too. She appeared in the second book I wrote, and she's been in every book since then. And she's based on a real person, lived right down the street from me. We went to junior high and high school together, elementary school, graduated the same year. And now she's such a fixture in my books. There's all the other characters in that book were all real people too, but one by one I had to get rid of them. But I couldn't get rid of Sherelle. She's just too integral a part.
PJ does a wonderful job bringing Earl to life as well. It's so much fun.
Earl's great. Earl's such a great character. But again, it's in the writing. There's another really cool thing that Cap does, and I'm sure the readers and in attendance know this. I'm not sure if the listeners do, though. If you only listen to the audiobooks, you might not realize that writers like Cap do something I think a lot of us narrators really, really love. He will write dialect aspects into the dialogue. So, Earl has some quirky ways of speaking, and, she's rough around the edges, and that's in there. It's in the text. So
that makes it easier.
It does, but it's, it makes it clear. And audiobook narration is really, really verbatim work. We don't take liberties. You don't ad lib. You don't change things around. We might drop off, final G's on ing words to make things more casual, little things like that. But you're not really going to change syntax and so on.
No.
And when authors do a great job of writing the character in their voice, it helps us tremendously. And you can really, really get into it as a narrator and bring them to life in the way the author intends. So
I don't know about you, but I'll sometimes get thrown when someone that generally speaks with a lot of gunnas and wannas all of a sudden has full contractions or a lack of contractions, but exactly. I want to go, or I'm like, oh no, I think you'd say wanna.
Yeah.
I wish that was a one, but I'll say want to.
Yeah, exactly. And then
But
sometimes
Wayne
you're
is
bound by that. You
extremely
have to-
good with Caribbean dialects, so he'll knock off the music is quite easy on. Wayne used to work as a dive master and spent a lot of time in the Bahamas, and so he's got that in his ear,
Mhm.
and it makes it quite easy to do those.
Yeah.
So many people just think that there's no difference between an Androsian accent and a Jamaican accent and a St. Thomas accent and a Belizean accent, but they sound similar. It's all based on a patois, but there's so just minor differences in the way they're spoken. And to be able to write it in a truthful, honest fashion, it's not easy.
I have a character, Cajun Kenny, and I have more fun writing Kenny's dialogue. And that is the thing I look forward to the most when the audiobook comes back. I want to
Get to
hear
listen to
PJ doing Cajun Kenny because he's so much fun.
Honestly, Kenny is probably my favorite character now to perform in the
Thank you.
series. He doesn't get a lot of page time, but when he shows up, it's a blast. The first time he showed up, it's one of those challenging accents where you want to do it justice, you want to do it well. But once I really got Kenny, now I look forward to it. Anytime he turns up, it's just a blast. And again, it speaks to that same point I just made, that Cap writes in his dialect so well that I don't have to, arm wrestle the text to somehow, make it work in the accent. The accent is built in. So, it helps tremendously to have the writing.
Thank you.
I'm going to put you on the spot, Nick. Which one of my characters is your favorite?
Oh, it's got to be Rusty.
That's what
It's got to be Rusty. I mean, you told me that's the reason you hired me, but that's because I had so much fun. Yeah, Rusty. I mean, and everything PJ said about placement is absolutely right. I mean, he's got a bit of a redneck conk thing I do, but it's really the placement and a little bit of scratch on it, and it's just so easy to do him, and he doesn't sound anything like me. A lot of time in my natural narration, once I get rolling, I get a little nasal and high. But God, I love it when Rusty comes in to rein me back in.
That is fantastic.
Now I feel like we got PJ on here, so I want to ask PJ real quick. What is your favorite American accent, and what is your favorite European accent?
Oh boy! Wow. Favorite American accent is probably my native accent, which is New York, working class New York. I grew up with a pretty heavy New York accent, so it's kind of funny when I get my my uncle on the phone and I start talking to him. It comes out instantly. And this is really like I grew up on Long Island, and this is what I sounded like. So I'll talk to my mom. I was on the phone with my mom yesterday. It's Sunday. I'm a good son. I called my mom. What are you going to do? It starts to happen like immediately. This is just, it comes out. And I lost it, I'd say probably I was about 15, 16, which might have something to do with why I'm a dialect coach now, because, your brain hardwires your accent around puberty, like around 13, 12, right in there. And to lose your accent after that age is highly unusual. It has to be a concerted effort, which is why you might meet somebody who has a really heavy accent from somewhere else, and you say to them, how long you been in the States? And they say 27 years. And you think, whoa, why didn't they lose their accent? And they're basically admitting to you they're probably over the age of 40. But you've probably also encountered someone where you meet their sibling, and the sibling sounds like they were born and raised in America, standard American accent. And you could do a little dialect detective work and say, so when you guys moved here, you were like, what, 14 and you were 7, right? How did you know that? And it's that kind of thing. It happens right in that cutoff period. My favorite European accent, probably two. I would say Scottish, including the UK and Europe, obviously. And in terms of mainland Europe, German. Those are probably the two I have the most fun with. And I mean, a ton of others. I narrate in first person accents a lot. I'll do books as an accented character. And accents from the English speaking world I always say the bar is higher because people actually speak that way. When you're doing foreign language accented English, there's a lot more room for error. because you could have, an Italian who lives across the street from another Italian. They both speak English really well, but they do a lot of different things in their.
And depending
Italian
on where they
accent.
learned the English
Precisely.
would affect the dialect as well.
Exactly right. They might have learned from a Brit, they might have learned from an American at different ages and so on. So there's a lot of room for error. But when you're doing an accent from the English speaking world, there's a definitive right and wrong, and the bar is much higher. So I do a lot of Scottish work. Sorry?
I was born and raised in West Virginia, and I moved to Florida at the age of 12. And when I moved to Florida, I had a very, very bad West Virginia accent. We didn't wash our hands, we washed our hands. And it didn't take very long. We moved in February, so I was in 4th or 5th grade, I think.
There you go.
And I was picked on because of my accent. So, and of course, everybody in Florida is from somewhere else. So I just had to start mimicking other people's accents.
You were the lucky age, though. That was a
Yeah.
really lucky age. A few years later, it would have been a lot harder, for sure.
My sister was 2 years older, and she still has a West Virginia accent to this day.
My East Tennessee Appalachian English comes out when I'm tired or I've had a cocktail or 12. And so
Speaking of,
I know.
If I'd known that was the tradition, I would have had my Cap Daniels bucket glass with some scotch or bourbon in it with me. I didn't know this was the tradition here on the show.
Oh, yes.
There it is.
okay, Thatcher's asking another question that gets asked a lot. Productivity. How many words a day? You mentioned earlier that you write 2,000 to 3,000 words a day.
2,500 to 3,000 is my goal every day.
My goal is 5,000 words a week. And
2,000 a day. I'll be happy.
I work 5 days a week. I don't write on Thursday and Friday, or I try not to. And because that's the day that our son has off. So we try to do things as a family. But I try to do 1,000 words a day, 5 days a week. And usually go well over that. This latest book, I'm completely finished with this week's writing. Yeah, but most people write 1,000 words a day on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's just, I go to these Facebook groups and people are lamenting how far behind they are on their writing. And their post is like, you got to scroll 3 times to read it. And I don't have that luxury, that kind of luxurious time wise, So,
Speaking of writing, Nick, when is your next book going to hit the shelves?
Oh, I saw that. Yvonne, I saw your question. Don't hate me. Do you see here over my shoulder? This is the sequel. This is the sequel to Zombie Bigfoot.
It's been there for 2 years.
I have to get it out of my head. So I'm going to South Caicos, I believe, to work on the next Boone and Emily in the summer. And I'm trying to get the Zombie Bigfoot sequel finished. That seems to be the one that is more likely to go to film and TV, just because of the way it's structured. And I need that second book done because I set up way too much stuff in that first book with my epilogues and my epilogues. But I would say, as much as I hope to do 2 deeps a year, the next one will come out in January again.
Oh, Yvonne asked a real good question. PJ, do you have any education, any formal education
In
acting, voice acting?
I think I was spotting this probably in response to like the dialect stuff. Yeah, I did some language studies at UCLA, also at LA City College back in the day, and I also worked directly with another dialect coach and their company when I first got started in dialect coaching. So on the linguistic side, that's how I learned all of the technical stuff. In terms of acting education, no, I started at the age of, on my 11th birthday is when my career started as a professional actor. And it was all on the job training. I was doing lots and lots of TV and stage from then, and never took a formal acting class.
I saw your flashback headshot. That was amazing.
Ah, right. Old headshot day. Pretty crazy, right? That was from then. That was 1986. Crazy. Just crazy.
Did you have a mullet?
Not quite.
Gosh, I was hoping the answer was yes.
But I did have hair.
I had sort of a mullet back then. I was bald as I am now, but I had an 18-inch ponytail with that little tiny bit remaining.
Nice.
That's terrifying.
It also got tangled up in the first stage a lot.
No doubt.
The things we didn't want to learn on this episode of TalkWrite.
That's right. If you, PJ and Nick, if you could perform any book ever published, what's your dream book to narrate?
Whoa.
Oh, that's a heavy question.
Oh, yeah,
That's a
I'm a heavy
good
dude.
question.
Look.
Wow.
I'll let PJ start first because he's the guest.
Come on. You should go first. I need to think. All right. Well, I'll be a cheesy, adoring husband, and I'll say the next book and all the ones that follow, and my wife Camilla's fantasy series that she writes, because
Of
they're
course.
amazing. So
Oh, your wife's a writer.
my wife is an author indeed. She's got about 17 out now. We do a
Oh.
series called Of Cats and Dragons, and it's basically YA fantasy, young adult fantasy. And they come out of she was a Dungeons and Dragons player since she was a kid, and she and her best friend, who they're closer than sisters, developed this amazing, I mean, it's a canon, characters, locations, and it's so fleshed out that one day they decided to turn it into a series, and it's been very, very successful. People love them. I narrate them, and it's a blast. And we've released now, well, all of the ones they've written in that series have all been released on audio, and we just released book 7 not that long ago. They're some of my favorite things to narrate. They're incredible. We've built a huge fan following with them, and it's rewarding. And not only, we get to do it as a team. Now Camilla even sits in and directs the sessions when I'm recording the books, which is really fun too. But it's very personal, and it's incredibly rewarding. So it's not just being mushy. In all seriousness, they're my favorite things to do now, because it really is, it's part of our relationship. It's part of our lives, and we've grown to love the characters. So she'll keep cranking those out, and I'll keep doing them. And it's a wonderful thing.
Well, you just scored some mad husband points there.
Yeah.
What
This
about
is being
you, Nick?
recorded, right? Like,
It
like
is.
I okay, good. I'll make sure
For
she sees this.
perpetuity.
Oh,
Let's
is
just
this
go
being
back to
recorded?
it.
Okay.
I can't compete with that. I mean, to kind of cheese out of the question a bit, I think the thing I would want to record is something that hasn't been written yet.
Oh, good answer.
I want to put my stamp on something from the beginning. Like I'd be like, well, I liked Game of Thrones. I'd love to do Game of Thrones, but I'm not British, and no one who's not British should do Game of Thrones in my mind. So, there's already great people doing all the Stephen King books, and honestly, of the things I've done, I've done all but one of William Gaddis's books, and that's the most rewarding jobs I've done. But I think from here forward, I'd like to record something new. I love fantasy. I haven't done it in a long time, so I'm jealous of what PJ's saying. I'd love to do a fantasy, because with fantasy, you get to go, this country talks with this dialect. This country talks with this. You get to sort of invent it, and as long as you keep it consistent, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we do with the world building. In fact, there's this really, really cool thing. In the world, there are these talking cats, and they're the most beloved characters of the whole series, and it's Of Cats and Dragons. It's all great fun. But we decided, even though back in the day, Camilla and Carol never thought of it in this way, when we were about to launch the series, I said, what would you think if Tormy and Tyrion had Scottish accents? And she's like, that's insane. And then they talked about it, like, we like it. And the more we think about it, the more we like it. I said, I think it's a good call. And now you can't, you could never hear them any other way now. And it's just great fun, because they're adorable, but they're also brave adventurers, and they're, involved as part of the party and in the adventures. And it's just become an amazing thing. But that's where you get to make these choices, because it is fantasy, like Nick says, and it's a blast.
Now, if you have Persian cats, do you give them a Farsi?
Well said. Exactly right.
John Rich wants to know if I still live in my hometown. I do not. It snows there. I never plan to live anywhere where it snows ever.
I was gonna pick on Don because he didn't actually say, "Do you still live in your hometown?" He said, "Are you still in your hometown?" No, he's right here beside me, Don. He's in Beaufort.
It's not a camera trick.
Yeah, this is real.
No. Let's see who else has jumped
We got
aboard.
any more? We're at 7:30. We got to get our questions in. What about Vince Flynn, Nick? I'm sorry. That's one where I was kicked out by George Goodall. He's now doing those.
Well,
We still
if
got
you-
a few questions here. Let's
if you're going to get kicked out by someone, George Goodall is a pretty good kicker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, take it, dude. Because I love listening to your books. Thank you, Smiley Farm, for loving Boone and M.
B for Bell asks, when are you going to get some swag up?
For which of us?
Nick,
Ah,
Oh, for Boone and Emily?
Bubble Chaser swag.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Just last week, I was talking to a friend of mine who designed the very first Zombie Bigfoot cover. She's an artist, and we are looking at creating a Bubble Chasers logo and some swag because I'm really jealous of Britnick and all of his swag.
oh, yes.
The only problem is Emily is obsessed with mermaids, and there's no way she wouldn't have a mermaid in her design. But Britnick's mermaid is like, so I have to come up with something different. So soon, I hope. Thanks.
Catherine Scheidler checked aboard. For those of you who do not know, she is the wonderful, beautiful daughter of Dawn Lee McKenna.
Oh,
who
hey,
lost,
Cat.
last year, and she's doing some wonderful things with Dawn's work, and there'll be some fantastic things to come in that realm very soon. But all of us love and miss Dawn terribly. It's a horrible loss to the writing community as well as the world as a whole. She was the best of us.
My latest book, Elusive Charity, released yesterday. Maggie's in it, along with Boudreaux. And just very small parts. Maggie pulls Charity over for speeding. So it's just cool to be able to have her in the story, because Dawn and I talked about it many times. I was a character in her books, her first book, and she was a character in my seventh book. And we always talked about exchanging characters. That one day Jesse would go up to the Forgotten Coast, but we just never got around to it. But I managed to get Charity up there and get to meet Maggie, and she sees Wyatt. She doesn't talk to him, but she recognizes this giant guy walking with this little short woman. That was a lot of fun.
And Wayne appears in several of my books as a crusty old former CIA guy who's a skipper of a research vessel now.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to play with that. I didn't get permission the first time, but I have always asked since then. But he appears.
It's better to ask forgiveness than
Indeed,
permission.
indeed. And your character is beloved as well. I get a lot of email about you.
And I did not do an impression of Wayne when I voiced Wayne in the books. Just so
Well, I have got to hear this.
It's good.
I need to.
You're
I need
a crusty
to-
old sea captain.
Yeah.
crusty old captain, but not the real Wayne Stinnett.
Right.
Oh, somebody asked how to find out when the next show is. TalkWrite podcast is the first Monday of every month, 6:30 p.m. Unless that Monday happens to fall on a holiday, when like July.
Yeah,
The
we've
first
got one
one in
coming up.
July is
We'll
July
nudge you
4th.
today.
So we're going to be on July 5th, and that just happens to be my next release.
Nice.
But subscribe to the channel. Once you subscribe, click that little notification bell. You'll get an email alert when we go live. And usually we don't even start talking. Like I came over here and sat down in a chair after 30 seconds. So you got a little bit of time to log on and see what's going on.
Well, Cap, I got a question for you.
Oh, this should be good.
Oh, yeah, it's good. As folks who watch this may know, we have a great little site called Tropical Authors, and some of the authors have been banding together to create these novellas, or thank you, Britnick, novels for the next one. And we've always been talking about, there's different sort of styles, and Cap's definitely got a bit of a Jason Bourne thing going, and we were looking at other options like Douglas Pratt and such. We were wondering who we could match up with Cap. But have you put any thought toward whether you might be able to find
Squeeze in
500 words
Novella?
out of your 2,500 during the day to apply to our little group?
The thing
group?
about doing a collaboration like this, the Timeless is, let's see, John has Timeless now, right?
Yeah, John has it now.
John Cunningham.
Okay, so we're really on the four of us. We're only writing 1/4 of a novel.
It's like a short
So it's
story.
only
a
like
piece.
15,000 words.
I would love to come aboard. That I would be honored and would treasure the opportunity.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, we had so much fun writing the first one, Graceless, and I haven't read any of Timeless yet.
Mhm.
Everybody else has read the entire thing so far, but I am not going to. I intentionally just not going to do it
Sure.
until John sends it to me and says, "Okay, the first 3/4 of it are done. It's on you."
It's your turn.
And I'll take it and do just like I do with my regular writing, just right by the seat of my pants.
Sure.
Read it and just continue the story.
Wayne and I have talked about a collaboration in the past, so we will likely do that together. And then anyone else in the Tropical Authors group, I would be honored to write with any of you.
And for anybody who's wondering what we're talking about, tropicalauthors.com. It's our website. It's a group of about 40 something authors now.
Yeah, we're mid-40s now.
40, 45. Wow.
Nice.
And we're a real tight knit group. We share information. We help each other. We plug each other's books and recommend each other's books. And it's a really tight little community within the author community. And I'm enjoying it. Tropical Authors means a lot.
This job is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
It's not a labor. We get to play every day.
It's a
so much
passion.
fun.
Yeah.
And getting to do it with people we care about and respect. That's a huge gift. Let's see.
I see they're grabbing something.
No,
No one has commented on how we have 4 baldies here. I'm just going to put it in because someone had to.
It's the follically challenged
The
podcast.
follically challenged 4.
Mine did not turn gray, it turned loose. So,
Mine didn't turn gray, it turned chrome.
oh, nice.
But yeah, I lost my hair when I was 23 years old, so I don't miss it. Well,
There's a quick question. How do you choose the order for a book like Graceless? I feel like we didn't really choose. It just sort of happened.
that just happened. It was
Yeah, I
more-
don't remember. I think
It
it had
was-
to do with who's
It's more geographical than anything. I mean, we just took the story from
Oh, that's right. Because it started in Cayman and it
started in
yeah.
the Cayman Islands to Belize.
It was
to
based
Key
on the
West
map.
to Marathon. So
Yeah.
it made a big circle on the map,
Yeah.
or big, I guess, C. But the next one, Timeless, it's all taking place on Grand Cayman, right?
Yeah, and we kept the order the same because we just didn't feel like thinking about it too much. It's just the same.
But we got any more questions there?
I think we've got everybody there, and now that I've figured out how to see it.
I try to never miss an opportunity to be thankful. And this forum offers that in an abundant way. So thank you, all of you who enjoy my work. People write and they use the word fan, and I don't like the word fan. I've never wanted fans. I want friends who enjoy my work, and that's what I consider my readers to be. And I deeply appreciate the incredible career you've given me and the opportunity to express my insanity into fiction. And thank you for giving me that opportunity.
But he's still working a day job.
Not much longer.
And hey, on the topic of gratitude, this is the first time I've had you guys together in one space, so I can give my heartfelt thanks to Nick Sullivan, whom I've known for many, many years, for connecting me with Cap in the first place, recommending me to pick up the series from where it was being left off, and my gratitude to Cap as well. I can say I've narrated It's well over 500 books now, and just in terms of creative collaborations and people who are just a delight to work with and words that are a delight to perform, it's a great series. You're a great person. You're kind. You're caring, and it's you can't ask for collaborations in the creative world that are half as good as this. So thanks to you, and I'm glad it all kind of came together like this.
Me too. Thank you so much, and especially thank you to Nick for the introduction.
Indeed.
And it came to mind immediately.
Just before we close, Britnick has joined the chat.
Oh, good.
Oh,
Better late than never, right? You've been diving, right?
Yeah, of course.
he's
Or
probably
driving
been
too
on the
fast.
Spiegel Grove.
That's my favorite shipwreck on the planet. I love the Spiegel Grove.
All right. Well, we're in overtime.
Super overtime.
10 minutes
Super
into overtime. So we're going to close out now. And it's been a really enjoyable hour. And I really appreciate you flying all the way over here to join us. And now we're going to go eat some tacos.
Yeah, flying is a real torture for me.
Yeah.
I hate that you made me do it on such a beautiful day.
I want to thank our sponsors, Down Island Publishing, Aurora Publicity, Latitudes and Attitudes Magazine, How Not to Sail. Good God, who else? Who am I forgetting?
Tropical Authors.
Oh, Pirate Radio,
Pirate
Tropical
Radio.
Authors. Geez, the list goes on and on. But thank you guys. It's been a really enjoyable hour, and hopefully we'll get to do this again one day.
Absolutely.
All right. Good night, everybody.